and hit import. Yay! We dropped some frames. That is brand new on our thing.
See?
So we might have to start. We might have to just go from here. We're beginning a speech. Blah blah blah. We're doing.
Oh, so it's like we're starting over?
Well, we might be. This is fan mail. Oh, okay. Here's our first one. It says, "Get Swifty." And that's something the Fantastic Beacon crew says. All right?
What's Swifty?
That's from an episode of Rick and Morty. So that is our first letter. And again, back to the analogy that I don't want to redo, from before the show. It's not good or bad. That's kind of...
Now, who's Rick and Morty?
There are cartoon characters who are on Adult Swim.
Wow.
Yes, so do you take that as a compliment or an insult?
I take it as a compliment because I feel like the insults are coming.
Okay, so we got our first compliment. It said, "Get Swifty." Okay, here's our second one. "Fred is fum." Okay, now that is from a SpongeBob episode where Patrick comes up. He comes up with a new marketing slogan. And he comes up with a marketing slogan from Plankton. Okay, you'll know who Plankton is, okay, but that's SpongeBob's enemy. And Patrick comes up with a marketing slogan that says, "Chum is fun." Right? And they said, well, it's an idiotic slogan. And they're like, it doesn't matter if it's idiotic. If everybody loves it, it's great. Right? Mm-hmm. So, somebody wrote that Fred is fun. So I thank them. I'll take that as a compliment. Would you? I'll take that as a compliment. See, now it's glitching again. Great. Now we're having trouble.
Now
with
we're
the
having
feed.
fun.
Now we're having. Fred is fun.
Now we're having fun.
Yes, we're having fun. Now I gotta see why the thing's glitching. Okay, here's the next one. "Dear Fred Hunt."
I feel like this is Russian roulette. Just wondering when.
No, this is a long.
Because the bullet's in there somewhere.
"Dear Fred Hunt," you haven't got any yet. Okay. "Dear Fred Hunt, hi, I'm a big fan of Beacon of Speech. That's it. Wait, P.S. It's too cold for my dainty paws. P.S.S. Do a fan mail video." Well, that's what we're doing. I'm taking your suggestion. Fan mail video. This is from Midnight Blue. Now, I assume the girl's name is not Midnight Blue.
Well,
but I thank Midnight
Blue.
Thank you very much, Midnight Blue.
Dainty paws. I assumed it was somebody like pretending to be one of your animals, or
I don't know. But I will take that as a compliment. So far, we have not gotten any full-blown insults. Would you say that's fair? So I thank all of our fans, because I think our last episode had 20 viewers.
Wow.
And they actually watched for more than 30 seconds, so it was very surprising. Oh, here's another. Do you want to hear another one?
I guess.
"Dear Frederick Emerson Hunt, hello, I am your #1 fan."
Is that your middle name?
Yes, it is. They must have talked to my daughter and said they're going to do a fan mail episode. "Hello, I am your #1 fan."
Is that Ralph Waldo Emerson? Is that who it's after?
No, my great-grandfather was Emerson something or another.
That is that writer's name, right?
Yeah, Ralph Waldo Emerson. But it says, "Hello, I am your #1 fan. I am in the process of writing a book about you and Ted Coley." Yay, you're going to be in a book. And we got to go back to Ted Coley the squirrel after we're done with our fan mail. Okay? And many others. "Please continue to make Beacon of Speech. Finally, it would be an honor if you read my book on Beacon of Speech. Thank you and have a juicy day, from Kenny."
Is that the kid that we've known about?
No, the one we've known about is Adam. So this is a different boy.
Oh,
so
wow.
Thank you, Kenny. I'll tell you what, we'll do a special Beacon of Speech. I won't make you do it, okay? But I will do like Beacon of Speech number whatever, say 72, and then I'll put like X, and then I will read his book on Beacon of Speech. It'll be a special edition. Do you want to be in line for that special edition Beacon of Speech?
Yeah.
Oh, well, maybe we'll do.
So it'll be like Fan Appreciation Day.
And now here's another one, okay? This one is heavily redacted, and I don't know why. "Dear Mr. Hunt, I love you, and you're a god. So far, so good. Ted Coley is pretty dank too. Tell him I said hi. This is from Baby Bean Clover. And then in the corner it says, hi, Ted Coley.
Oh, wow.
So you are getting some love from the thing. They think I'm a god and that you are dank. Now, you are not hip with the terms of the young people.
No, I am not.
Dank means awesome or cool.
I assumed dank was like my basement.
No, that's a different kind of dank. My hat is so crooked, it's really bugging me. Every time I look at the camera, all I see is a crooked hat. But so, what was the name again? Baby Bean Clover, I thank you very much. So far, we're getting awesome.
Now, do you know who that is?
No, I have no idea who that is. I have an idea of who it is, but I don't know for sure. Now, I'm going to tell you right now. Right now, we only have animation. What I did is the beacon of speech, when you look at the cover, is a beacon with a light coming out, right? We don't have any artistic value to our site, right? This is what we need to do right here. I'm going to put it right up to the camera. This is going to be our new beacon of speech. What I want to do is upload that and make that our new screensaver because it's beacon of speech. That is awesome. And all it says is speech, 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 which is all I do is talk and yammer on. And it says, we have a fantastic beacon crew. That's me and you. Yay, so far we've gotten good ones. See, now even if we get one or two bad ones, that's still pretty good. We're still doing a good ratio.
You've already read them all, haven't you?
Yes, I have. So I know.
See, you shouldn't have done that.
Well, well, Quinn wanted me to see it, so I thank her very much. Okay. Now, this one's a little confusing, but that's okay. Dear Fred Hunt, I'm a boy. I like you. Hey, LOL. I want you to read this on Beacon of Speech. Thanks, y'all. From Hamburger Chick. Okay, well, it says there I'm a boy, right? Mm-hmm. That's okay. I'll take any compliments that I can get. So, Hamburger Chick, I thank you very much. But Ted, they didn't mention you at all.
Yeah,
are you jealous that you were not mentioned by him?
We're easing into the insult.
So far, we're 7 minutes in, and we've got nothing but... see, this is the one I thought you might not like. See, I don't know if you take that as a flatter. But this is from the Fantastic Beacon crew. We got more animation. That's Fred Hunt with the hat, because I'm always wearing the hat. And that's Ted Coley. Okay, right there. And look at what a big smile and big hands you have. And you know what they say about guys with big hands, right? And that's from Midnight Blue. Okay, now Midnight Blue already had nice things to say about us, but you know what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to start like an art corner. And we'll have to put that up. We will encourage people and put their art up here. Okay?
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, I'm impressed. Like I said, I'm happy. I'm glad. Anybody who's listening, I am very complimented. I even wore my special Detroit Red Wings shirt to prove it. This is from Dank Memes. I wonder who this is. Dear Fred Hunt, I'm your biggest fan and have been watching you for a while now. It would be great if you did this on Beacon. If you did letters on Beacon of Speech. I love you. Okay, this is a little... Oh, shout out to you, Ted Coley, and Wasted Space. Wow. I am an emo girl. And then I'm the one who drew this.
An evil girl?
An emo, not an evil girl. Emo.
Emo?
Emo. Like emo music, yes, EMO. So I am an emo girl. And then here's Fred Hunt. Here's another picture that I love. It is fan-frickin-tastic.
Let me look at that.
You can look at that. Okay, Ted, you ready? You ready to put this on your wall? This is Ted's band. When you were lead singer of the band Wasted Space, did you get any fan art?
No.
No, this is your first one. Even though they spelled Wasted Space wrong, it's with a Y.
Yes.
So here you go. You could show the camera. Wasted Space.
Wow.
Now, this one, that's awesome. This one just says Fred. Now, if you're at home, you can't see it very good, but I will take this as a compliment But now people who are just watching for the first time probably think that I made this up and just wrote my own name on it.
That's what I thought.
Because that's about the level. So there's only one left. Okay, is this going to be a good one or a bad one, Ted?
Probably a bad one.
You ready? Dearest Fred, I want shoes from Yaboa. Is that a good one or a bad one?
I want shoes?
Yes, I want shoes. Would that be a good one or a bad one? I don't know. I'll take that as a compliment again.
Oh, wow.
They didn't say we want to kill you or I want to hurt you with shoes. It just says I want shoes.
I probably wouldn't have even known that this says I want.
So, I'm taking that as a compliment, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, if we have any shoes, we're going to go in Ted's basement after this. Look for old shoes. Do you have any old shoes in your basement?
Yeah, I do.
We will find old shoes and send Yaboa shoes. Would that work?
No, seriously, is this person collecting shoes?
I don't know.
Because I do have old shoes that I don't know what to do with.
I think they are being clever for Beacon of Speech. So how do you feel, Ted? We got fan letters. Do you feel complimented or do you feel insulted? Do you want to find these people?
No, I feel somewhat complimented.
I feel very complimented. Anybody who writes, we will read your letters, time permitting. Now, we won't always start the show with it because we have to talk about Trump and dead rock stars and all that other fun stuff. But because this has never happened before, this is the news of the day for Beacon of Speech. We got fan mail. People actually want... Ted, there's a few episodes around Beacon of Speech 21 where we have 0 views. Now we're up to 20 views, and we're getting fan mail about shoes. So what else? What other level of success can we have? Right now, when we started Beacon of Speech, we were down here, okay? Now we're up to Wasted Space level of success, right? Because you got paid for Wasted Space. Tens and tens of dollars.
Yes.
Correct?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we're at right now. Now we just got to wait for all the accolades to roll in. I was talking to Ted about options before we even started about moving Beacon of Speech to the next level, right, Ted?
Mm-hmm.
And see, don't you feel like we are getting to the next level of Beacon of Speech?
Yeah, I'm very excited.
Yes, I can tell.
No, I did not expect that.
See? Which brings us back to what we do at Beacon of Speech, which is me bitching about everything. Would you say that's fair also?
Mm-hmm. Well, not everything, but
now,
just everything you can think of.
Beacon of Speech is roughly based off of something I did when I was in graduate school, okay? When I was in graduate school, I had a pirate radio station. It was called Radio Anarchy, okay? And basically all I did, and we're going to tie Radio Anarchy in out throughout our episode today. Radio Anarchy was mostly just me playing music that wasn't on the radio, which I know you find that hard to believe, and me ranting and bitching and moaning, right? Well, I didn't have the confidence that I do now, so it was more music and very little talking, okay? The Beacon of Speech blog, I wrote my 100th article today, and some of them you helped me with, but the 100th article for Beacon of Speech was this week. I just posted it. It was today or yesterday, and in it, I talked about Radio Anarchy from way back in the day. Now, are you impressed that we have 100 blog posts now? We have fans, we have 100 blog posts, and we're talking about Radio Anarchy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, we're going to tie this in all together by the end of the day, right? Now, when people say, Fred, you talking about everything, that's what Howard Stern does, okay? That's not exactly what Howard Stern does, okay? Now, we base Beacon of Speech off of the free speech issues of the day, right? Now, people say Howard Stern talks about everything that he wanted to. Well, he was very unpredictable, but how many times did you hear him bring an actress on and then he asked, oh, how's your new movie? How'd you like so-and-so? And then the third question was always, do you do anal? Right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was very predictable. So at some point, at the beginning, the Howard Stern show was all about being unpredictable, and within a couple of years, it became predictable because, hey, let's see how far we can push the envelope sexually.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my interest as a beacon of speech is not to push the envelope sexually, because there are literally 1 million sites where you can go to online and find that. Okay, I don't want to be 1,000,001. Now, you should be able to have the freedom to talk about stuff like that, but once you get to Howard Stern territory, if you're listening to a show and you're hearing an interview with a Hollywood actress, guess what you're going to hear about? You're going to hear, hey, we're going to have some fun and talk about, sex acts, right? Now, today you can't do that anymore because that was the culture of Fox News. Fox News took what Howard Stern did to the extreme. They said, we are going to run a good old boys club, and we are going to do what Howard Stern say and put it into practice. And then all of a sudden, after they did it for 20 years, all of a sudden they said, you can't do that anymore. Okay, well, too late. The damage is already done. You already set your culture, right? Now, this week, who died? We're going to talk about a lot of dead people.
Chris Cornell.
Chris Cornell died. But who died we're going to talk about Chris Cornell too. Who died in relation to
Roger Ailes?
Roger Ailes. Now, Roger Ailes died, and at his funeral, Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity, all the muckety mucks all came because he was a great man. Okay? Just because he sexually abused women for probably his whole life didn't stop all these Fox News contributors to come. I don't think Megyn Kelly came, right? And I don't think all the women that they hired, again, back to the analogy of it's a good old boys club, I don't think there were a lot of women there. And the men who were there said it was horrible what they did to him at the end of his life. Well, guess what? He was an a-hole his whole life, right? And all of a sudden, he's dead, and you're like, oh, just ignore that when he was an a-hole his whole life.
Yeah.
And again, they'd be like, well, that stuff, that's just boys being boys. Well, that doesn't excuse what you were for your whole life. And they said that, at the end, he was devastated. Well, it's like if you were a thief and you were stealing your whole life, and then you found out that somebody was a thief their whole life, you're not like, oh, well, he's a good guy. You're like, holy cow, he was a thief his whole life. He was basically the white version of Bill Cosby for his whole life, right? And then he died, and then everybody's like, he was such a great man. Now, Bill Cosby has dug his own grave. They're not going to, say the same thing. But Roger Ailes was the white Bill Cosby. And it's going to come out. And like I said, he was worse than Bill Cosby because he had more power than Bill Cosby did. He had $1 billion media empire.
I still think that Bill Cosby should have replaced Bill O'Reilly. Have the Cosby factor.
Well, that's the whole thing. When I was young, I loved Bill Cosby. But then when I remember being a kid, listening to albums. There's an album with him riding a go-kart, and I think it's called Wonderfulness. But I just know the album cover is Bill Cosby on a go-kart, and it's hilarious because he's 28 years old on a go-kart. And I listened to that album maybe 1,000 times in my whole life. It's just great. It's great comedy, and I loved Bill Cosby until maybe the 80s or 90s with the Cosby Show, and I'm like, the Cosby Show's a little preachy. Right?
Yeah.
And when he came out and he goes, Eddie Murphy don't need to swear in order to be funny. And I'm like, I don't know. I think Eddie Murphy is funnier because he does swear. Which again goes back to the speech. Eddie Murphy should be allowed to say whatever he wants within the constricts, of a comedy show. You see what I'm saying? And Bill Cosby coming out, he doesn't need to swear. Well, that's why he has the R rating on him. They rated him R. You say whatever you want, Bill Cosby. Or not Bill Cosby, Eddie Murphy. If you want to use the F word 1,000 times and just F, that's fine. If you're in an adult setting and there's not 5-year-olds running around, that's fine. And then you find out that Bill Cosby did things that were worse than Eddie Murphy ever talked about.
Yeah.
And Eddie Murphy was the good one. And Eddie Murphy's the one who Eddie Murphy was hilarious. Okay, would you say that's fair?
Mm-hmm.
Had sex with transgender prostitutes. Had cheated on his wife with Spice Girls. Right?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Spice Girls?
Yes. Who's the one with the frizzy hair? Was that Scary Spice?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Whoever that is.
Mel somebody.
B. Right? No matter what Eddie Murphy did, he didn't do anything worse in real life than what Bill Cosby did. But Bill Cosby is lecturing Eddie Murphy.
Yeah. Well, isn't that the way it always... Well, not always,
but
it usually is.
But that's the way America is.
Yeah.
You don't look at me. Look at that guy. He's horrible. Well, they're all horrible. You're probably horrible. I'm probably horrible. I probably have all kinds of secrets I'm not even talking about today. I don't have a lot of secrets. I'm very boring. I come on here and I yell and it brings me great joy. But you see what I'm saying? And what was the point of my story? Oh, Roger Ailes, right? So Roger Ailes comes out and, he's dead and all his friends say he was devastated. Yeah, he was devastated because they caught him being an a-hole. Oh, he was such a great man. He was such a great man. I keep reading on the internet, and I don't like Donald Trump, right? I've been very clear. And they said, remember the good old days when the worst thing a president ever did was a minor sex scandal, and there's a picture of Monica Lewinsky and Bill Clinton, okay? I cannot say this enough times in my life, okay? If you have a sex scandal, that's fine, okay? That's two consenting adults, okay? Bill Clinton's sex scandal, in any business in America, if you have sex with your student intern, you are fired, okay? If you are president, that does not excuse you from having sex with your student intern. Now, if he wants to have marital relations with Jennifer Flowers or the other girls in the Arkansas State Trooper, car, whatever, and people would be like, oh, well, Donald Trump got married 3 times. Listen, I'm not talking about that. Bill Clinton should have been impeached for the Monica Lewinsky scandal because he had sexual relations with a student intern. If the teacher at Garfield Heights High, right down the street, has sex with an intern, they're fired. You go to the local business, they're fired. It's all the do as I say, not as I do crap.
Mm-hmm.
And when I saw that post, it said, oh, I wish that it was the good old days like Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton got away with it. He should have been fired. He should have been impeached. Well, Donald Trump should be impeached. Okay, well, impeach Donald Trump too then. I don't care. Impeach them all. Somebody has to run the country at some point. And the reason I bring up Donald Trump is because, I don't like him, but I have to ask you, Donald Trump supporter, what do you think about the Saudi Arabia trip?
About the Saudi Arabia trip?
Yes.
Now, this is the one that's just
right now.
Right now.
He just left within the last day. What do you think about the Saudi Arabia trip?
Well, I really haven't been paying close attention to it.
Okay.
Is there anything you can tell me? Or
Well, basically, he's going to Saudi Arabia, which I have a problem with, because in American Suicide, in my first book, I feel the same way as the character did, okay? When 9/11 happened, you don't go to Afghanistan, you don't go to Iraq, you pick up your troops, you invade Saudi Arabia. 16 of the 17 people were from Saudi Arabia, or 15 of 16, and then 1 was from Yemen, okay? It doesn't matter if Saudi Arabia is your friend, because, again, Germany and Russia had a non-aggression pact in World War II. People have non-aggression pacts, and surprise, we're going to invade you. Like, I believe Kuwait and Iraq were on good terms, and then all of a sudden, Iraq says, woohoo, now Kuwait is now, new Iraq City.
Yeah, that was the first Gulf War.
The first Gulf War. They were not shaking sabers at each other because Kuwait was so small. You see what I'm saying? There's lots of people, and so my philosophy has been, since 9/11, they should have invaded Saudi Arabia. Don't go to Iraq, don't go to Afghanistan, go to Saudi Arabia. Now people are saying, well, you can't do that, but people like Rush Limbaugh, you find out that they had advertising with Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia put millions of dollars into American newspapers across the nation after 9/11.
Okay, there were 19 hijackers.
Is it 19?
I
said
think it was
15 out of
19,
16.
and I think 15 of the 19 or something like that.
Yeah. No matter what.
Now, when they say 15 or whatever the number is were from Saudi Arabia, were they living there right before this happened, or
Yes.
were they born there and they
no,
went to
they
other places?
they lived there, and then they came towards America. You see it like some of them came to America and tried to integrate for a year or two, so you wouldn't see their scheme. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well,
but after this happened, the country of Saudi Arabia said, we're going to take out ads on TV and newspapers. I remember $1 million
well, just because
deal.
those guys came from Saudi Arabia doesn't mean the leadership of Saudi Arabia, endorsed what they were doing.
And you're right. But when you are crazy, you put the fear of God in people. When you're a country, you can do... What I'm saying is, let's just say you're a liberal. I know you're not, okay? You say, I don't think we should have invaded anybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'd be like, okay, well, you're a liberal, and you don't think we should have invaded anybody. That's fair. You say, well, we'll chalk that up because those people were not in the Saudi Arabian army, right? And I would say that's fair. What I'm saying is, if you're going to invade somebody, I would not have picked Saudi Arabia. And in the book, American Suicide, I remember saying...
You would have picked Saudi Arabia.
I would have picked Saudi Arabia. But I would not have picked Iraq. But I said, also in the book, again, it's fiction, but it's parallels what I feel. For all I care, say I was the president, okay? And people are like, oh, you can't invade Saudi Arabia. Okay, we're going to take a wheel. Okay, we're going to put this wheel right here. Like on the Howard Stern show. Remember where they had the wheel and they would make the strippers do different things based on the wheel, right? Again, back to the lowest common denominator stuff. If I'm the president, you put a wheel up there, you spin the wheel, and you put 10 countries up on the wheel. Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iran, Yemen, all the people who are giving America trouble, okay? And say, listen, these are the countries who are giving us trouble. We're going to invade one of you, and we're going to see who the winner is and spin it on live TV. Okay? And we picked Saudi Arabia because the terrorists are from here. We don't like the Shah. They took our hostages, so Iran's here. We don't like Pakistan because of this reason. And put the 10 countries we're having. And then just for fun, put North Korea. Okay? We'll put North Korea. And then spin the wheel, whichever one, then you can invade them. Okay? And that's fine. You can do that. Okay? Well... We just lost our wire. We don't want to lose our feed. I kicked the wire out. So the point is, I would have invaded Saudi Arabia. I would have even done the wheel of doom. Okay? Or, again, we'll go with your analogy, don't invade anybody. Okay? But when 9/11 happened, they had something. We have to invade somebody. We have to show the people that we're doing something because we're politicians.
Well, I mean, they determined that Bin Laden was responsible for those attacks, and he was in Afghanistan and being protected by the Taliban.
Right.
And we said, turn him over, or we're coming in.
Right.
And of course they didn't turn him over, so I don't think that was so, unreasonable.
Now I do, and I'll tell you why. Because Afghanistan, I remember when I was a kid and reading about Russia invading Afghanistan and how Russia were horrible, horrible people because they invaded Afghanistan basically for no reason. And this is why I remember as a kid. And the poor Afghanis were these peace-loving people who just grew flowers in the mountains. Mm-hmm. Okay? And then you find out later that all they do is a bunch of tribes that kill each other, and the flowers are growing in the mountains are poppies, and they're the #1 heroin exporters, right? Mm-hmm. And I gotta move that wire, I'm sorry. So Russia had a 10-year war, and all America did for 10 years is say, you should never invade Afghanistan. Why would you invade Afghanistan? you cannot invade the sovereign country of Afghanistan. All they are is peace-loving goat herders, right? And then they invaded Afghanistan. Literally, as soon as Russia got out, we're like, oh, it's our turn. Let's go out and invade Afghanistan.
Yeah, but it's not that simple, though. We didn't just go in there for no reason.
Oh no,
we went in there to get Bin Laden.
Right, but and trust me, I'm gonna beat on this, okay? Because you are making very good points. We didn't go there for no reason. Do you remember where they eventually found Bin Laden?
They found him in Pakistan.
They found him in suburban Pakistan. Yeah. They didn't find him in the foothills. They found him in the suburbs. And I remember them interviewing a doctor. And they said, oh, yes, he lived in the suburbs. He was right over the hill. So they did not invade the hills of Pakistan. He was living in the city of Pakistan, which means there's no way in hell that Pakistan would have not known Bin Laden was there. Okay? Which means he was being protected by the Pakistani government, which goes back to our wheel. I don't care who you invade. I don't care if you invade Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iran, Iraq, Yemen, and then throw North Korea on there and spin the wheel because one of them deserves it, and we're going to show that someone's going to pay for 9/11. Now, people turn around and say, well, Iraq shouldn't have been invaded, right? Again, flashing back, the Iran-Iraq War. Do you remember the Iran-Iraq War?
Yeah, and I believe that started. Iraq invaded Iran.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we picked sides. We hated Iran, so we sent all our weapons to Iraq.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, we turn around and invade Iraq because we think that they're protecting Bin Laden when they didn't have anything to do with it. So we're fighting a war against. But you're right. It's muddy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think George Bush ever implied that Iraq had anything to do with 9/11. The way I always looked at it was after 9/11 happened, he thought we have to take other threats more seriously.
And I don't disagree.
I could be wrong. My impression was that I don't think he ever said, hey, Iraq was responsible for 9/11. I don't think he ever said that.
Yeah. Well, and that's why... No, I'm not arguing with you. Because, again, you could go back to... did they do it to free Kuwait, or did they do it just because they were sick of Saddam's shenanigans? Did they do it because Bin Laden? Now, there's no way that it had anything to do with Bin Laden, right? But you could say that George Bush Jr. wanted to, avenge George Bush Sr., because they tried to kill him. And so you don't know what the real reason is, and by the crazy maniacal Fred version, it don't matter. Here's a remote reason we're going to put you on the wheel of doom. Okay? And somebody's going to get it because of 9/11. Now, again, you could say, well, we shouldn't have invaded anybody. I will listen to that argument too. Mm-hmm. What I'm saying is, personally, if you ask Fred Hunt, after 9/11, who would you have invaded? Fred Hunt would have said, country 1, Saudi Arabia, country 2, Pakistan. Okay? I would have said, forget. Now, they'd be like, you can't invade Saudi Arabia, they're our friends. Well, too bad. And Pakistan would be like, that would be like going to Afghanistan and be like, oh no, Pakistan is nicer. They haven't had 30 years of civil war.
Now, when 9/11 happened, Bin Laden was in Afghanistan.
Supposedly. But, do you remember...
Well, that's where he was before 9/11, right?
Do you remember Colin Powell showing the map at the United Nations saying, these are the chemical weapons storage containers in Iraq, we have to stop them.
Yeah.
And then Colin Powell came out 10 years later and say, yeah, those might have just been random warehouses. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, see, the thing is that you have to go back to at least the first Gulf War.
Right.
And, I mean, you felt that was justified, right?
Oh, no.
Oh, you don't?
No.
So when Iraq invaded Kuwait, and they did, they invaded a sovereign nation.
Right.
And Kuwait was an ally of ours, right?
Right.
and we were just backing up an ally.
Okay. Now, we were backing up an ally, okay? But the Middle East is all artificial, for the most part. They're all artificial boundaries
Yeah.
placed by the imperialist British and the imperialist French, and you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, I don't know a lot about it, but I have heard,
So when Iraq invaded Kuwait,
And was all that done after World War One, or
yeah, I think so. But again,
between 1 and 2?
people have always been there, but they're like our tribe, their
Yeah.
tribe. We're in here. I am not a Middle Eastern political science major, okay?
Yeah.
But there's all different sections.
I don't think anybody is.
Right, but that's what I'm getting at. So when they went into Kuwait, okay, what I thought was it sucks for Kuwait, and they are their own sovereign nation, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know what the hell's been going on there for 1,000 years. For all I know, Kuwait used to be part of Iraq, and they came back out. Now, let me use another analogy. Putin and...
The thing is, though, if you do nothing, that doesn't mean the problem goes away.
Oh,
you know what I'm saying? It's like, it's a problem. When they invaded them, you could say, well, we shouldn't have gone in there, but it doesn't make the horrific things that are going on if you just say, well, no, we shouldn't have anything to do with it. It doesn't end then.
Let me go back, because you're making a good point. Let me write it down so I don't miss it, okay?
What I think a lot of liberals do, because most liberals are against us intervening anywhere.
Right.
They just make it seem like, well, if we don't get involved, then everything will be fine.
Right.
No, it's not like that.
Okay.
I'm not saying it's fine if we do get involved, but they make it seem like, hey, just close your eyes and it'll go away.
Let me bring up Putin real quick, okay?
But and the thing is that I'm not saying what we've done is right or wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But
I know
there are no easy answers.
I know a little bit about Ukraine, okay? In Putin's head, okay, Putin looks at Ukraine and says Ukraine is part of Russia as much as Texas is part of America. The Ukraine says we are not part of Russia. We've been our own independent nation for 500 years, and you Russian bullies keep trying to take us over. Okay? Now, I agree with Ukraine. If you look in the history books, Ukraine has been around for 500 years, on and off. People march through Ukraine, march out of Ukraine, march into Ukraine, march out of Ukraine. People are trying to burn down Ukraine, civil war. Yeah, Ukraine's had so many civil wars.
And really, when you think about it, this is the history of the whole world.
Exactly.
It's like this. Nobody really owns anything.
Right.
It's like I heard somebody said once that it's like fleas arguing who owns the dog.
Right. That's a great analogy. So going back, I know a little bit more about Ukraine. Okay. Now, going back to the Kuwait example, I remember Bush saying that Saddam Hussein invaded Iran, which you know, right?
Yes.
Me and you just talked about. They invaded Kuwait. Mm-hmm. Saudi Arabia was scared to death that they would walk through the desert, and Saddam Hussein, in their head, Saddam Hussein was a Middle Eastern Hitler. Okay? So in their head, we're going to tear up Iraq, and we're going to stop this Middle Eastern Hitler. Mm-hmm. Okay? Now, you could argue, and you might not be wrong, that George Bush was right because...
The first Bush?
The first Bush was right because he was trying to stop a Middle Eastern Hitler.
Yeah.
They sold him weapons before they knew that he wanted to take over all the country. Next thing you know, he's going to take over Saudi Arabia and Jordan.
Right.
So you can argue that, or... Saddam Hussein was here, he'd be like, oh, no, I was just trying to, strengthen Iraq from our neighbors who wanted to attack us. Well, again, you are picking sides between horrible people. Mm-hmm. Well, why are they horrible people? Because they've been in civil war, for 1,000 years. Going back to the Ukraine example, I wrote an article for Beacon of Speech. It was one of the first ones. And they said that if you lived in somewhere in Kiev, and Kiev is the capital of Ukraine, and you were born in I read this article last year. You were born in 1916, and you lived in Kiev for 100 years, that you would have been 5 different nationalities if you never moved. Because you would have been Ukrainian, Russian, German, something else, and they were like anarchists for a while. Like there was no government for months and months.
Are you talking about during those different periods? It was those countries that controlled
Right,
that area,
right? And the Russians came through, killed everybody, but the Germans were still in charge. They were still an occupying force.
Yeah.
Now, me and we're doing the show in Cleveland, Ohio, right? You have never been anything but an American. I've never been anything but American. Nobody has ever come close to putting foreign boots across the front steps of Garfield Heights. Is that correct?
Correct.
At least to our knowledge. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Maybe Kim really secretly thinks he's going to take over America because he's a madman. Okay? But again, back to, circling around, Trump went to Saudi Arabia. And the thing that bothers me is I remember ever since I was a kid, don't sell Saudi Arabia those planes with the funny circles on the top, the AWACS, right? Saudi Arabia is horrible. Don't do this. Don't do that. And then all of a sudden, Saudi Arabia pours millions of dollars in the American economy, sells us cheap oil, and they are our friends. Well, back to the flea analogy, when you lay with dogs, you get fleas. So every president is like, Saudi Arabia is our friend. Why are they our friend? They're horrible. As far as I can tell, Saudi Arabia is run by kings, isn't much better than Iran or Iraq. And again, you cannot install democracy. You're finding this out in Iraq. You cannot install democracy where they don't know what democracy is.
Yeah.
And so when Trump went to Saudi Arabia, I'm like, all you did was criticize Obama for bowing when he went to Saudi Arabia, right? And now, literally, what is this, his first or second trip out of the country, and he's going to Saudi Arabia? I mean, there's 200 countries in the world. Why did you pick Saudi Arabia as one of the countries you want to go to first? You think you'd want to go to Canada, or you think you'd want to go to Great Britain, and you can't go to Russia or else the media is going to kill you, okay? But you can't go to Saudi Arabia as one of the first countries, and these are our friends. Those are our friends. At some point...
Was that one of Obama's first trips, too? Because
yes,
he went to
I
Saudi
believe
Arabia,
so.
right?
Yes. At some point, you have to say the Middle East is a mess.
Yeah.
And you treat it like Africa, okay?
Yeah.
And you're like, I don't care what you countries do. Like, I'll give you an example. Do you know if I pulled out a map of Africa, do you know where the Sudan is?
I know the rough area. I might not be able to get it. It's close to Ethiopia, isn't it?
Yes. 2 or 3 years ago, South Sudan they ceded from Sudan, okay? And there's been civil war in Sudan for 10, 15 years. Now, do you ever see that on the American media?
No.
No. I never saw it in the American media. The only reason I know anything about South Sudan is because...
Was that Darfur?
No, Darfur's
okay.
It's farther south than Africa. But they don't care. The media doesn't care. The government doesn't care. They say you can create a country and destroy a country and like.
Now Sudan was one of the 7 countries that Trump wanted to boycott people coming in from, right?
Yes, and so we do not care. We do not care about Africa. I'm not saying me and you do not care because maybe you secretly do. Okay, but I'm saying as a nation of America, we do not care about Africa, okay? And so they need to treat the Middle East
because
like
Africa. It doesn't affect our national security.
I would disagree and say it doesn't.
Well, I'm saying that's their philosophy.
Right, but I would say it doesn't fit into their national interest because Iran was never going to get 1 million people
and by
on
national
a plane
interest,
and invite,
mainly mean oil.
Right. they were never going to invade America. Iran was never going to invade America. Iraq was never going to invade America. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I always held firm. Saudi Arabia invaded America. Well, you could say, no, they didn't. Their citizens did. Well, where did the money come from? The money came from the Bin Laden family. Where did the Bin Laden family come from? That's from the royal family of Saudi Arabia. Who runs Saudi Arabia? It doesn't matter what one guy runs Saudi Arabia. The royal family runs it, and when the king dies, his prince, son, or nephew will take over. And that's why I always said, treat them like Africa. You know, when you're in the Middle East, let them do what they've been doing for centuries.
Mm-hmm.
And go ahead and fight all the wars you want, but you are right. We want cheap oil.
Yeah.
But if you just drill in Alaska, we could have all the cheap oil we wanted. Don't take their cheap oil. Let them take over all the countries. And unless you run into somebody who's going to make it, like Hitler wanted Europe to be just Germany, right? If you run into one country who just wants it to be one thing, like Iran, and say they come out and they invade 3 countries at once, and say it's going to be the Middle Eastern country of Iran, well, then you have to do something. Other than that, screw it.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of libertarians feel like, and that's when they trip. Everything goes back to Gary Johnson. Gary Johnson didn't know where the city in Syria was. Well, he goes, well, I know off the top of my head Aleppo, because I think we should get out of the Middle East. And he is fundamentally right. Well, all these people are like, well, you can't get out of the Middle East because the oil prices will get up. Well, then you're going to have to pay more for oil. Or start worrying about solar.
Well, see, the thing is that, all these people who bitch about, we're just doing it for oil. Every one of those people uses oil.
Yes. Very few people are living in the commune. And as soon as oil goes from $2 a gallon to $3 a gallon, I'm like, oh my God, we got to do something about the oil. And I am no better. So you are exactly right.
And I'm not saying that. I'm just being a realist. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that it's right or wrong. I'm just saying this country, probably more than anywhere else on earth, runs on oil.
Right. But it just bothers me that Trump went to Saudi Arabia first. There's 200 countries. And so I don't have a problem with him, how he acts. Like, some of them were making fun of him because he was dancing at one of the things. And another place is like, well, did he bow or did he not bow?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think he bowed because they gave him a medal. Well, it's the same thing as when Obama won the Peace Prize. He won the Peace Prize when he had been president for, 5 days? And it's the same thing with Trump. What did Trump do to get a medal in 100 days?
I heard a story talking about bowing and not bowing. I remember they said that, I don't know if this is true or not, but what Saddam Hussein used to do when somebody was introduced to him, he wouldn't reach his hand out very far. He would just hold it out like right here, so that the person had to lean in and look down, so that it always looked like they were bowing to him.
Well, a lot of fighters do that in the pregame. We're going to give you the stare down, and I'm going to lean in, and then I'm going to put my forehead on his forehead. Yes, you're exactly right. All he is a bully, but when you have a handful of nations who are all bullies, and in their defense, if you don't have a bully, then your neighbor tries to eat you. Like Kuwait.
See, the thing is with the Middle East, it's just different degrees of a bad answer.
Right.
You know what I mean? There are no good answers there. No matter what you do, you're wrong.
Right. And at some point, you have to say, if you want to be a democracy, you have to figure it out. Your people. Now, all the people leaving Syria, supposedly Syria used to be a really nice place, right? At some point, they are in Europe, the Syrian refugees, and they're going to want to make new Syria, right? They don't want to acclimate, say the refugees go to Britain. They don't go there saying, we are now British. They say, we are bringing Syria to Britain. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Which goes back to the American melting pot theory. Nobody wants to come to America. They want to bring their country to America. Well, you could turn around and say, well, you're bringing England to America. You know, I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. I've been here my whole life.
See, and that argument that people give, if we go in there, we should just go in there, take out the guy, and then get out. Well, that doesn't work either, because then the vacuum that is filled by somebody as bad, if not worse.
Some other maniac.
Yeah. So no matter what you do, it just leads to...
The best thing you can do is mind your P's and Q's and want people to be like you. If America led by example... Other countries would be like, we want to be like America. Yeah. But now they don't say that anymore. We want to be like Canada. We want to be like Russia. You know what I mean? Yeah. Not the Ukraine. But you see what I'm getting at. And as soon as you start picking sides when you're America, you're picking winners and losers, you're making, getting people angry at you. My whole life, one of my favorite songs is a band called, the band's called Stormtroopers of Death, and the song is called F the Middle East. Okay? And all it's punk guys saying, screw the Middle East, there's too many problems, do what you want, nothing can solve them. And that song was written 30 years ago. You can play it today, it's the same exact thing. You step out, you don't let there be a Middle Eastern Hitler, and that's it. And say Kuwait was taken over, well, I'm sorry, Kuwait, you're the size of Rhode Island. Your royal family is now screwed, the Kuwaiti royal family, but the rest of it, their quality of life is probably going to be the same in Iraq than it was in Kuwait. You know what I mean? And I don't think they invaded, like when Iraq invaded Kuwait, they didn't have Kuwaiti concentration camps. They weren't like, if you were a Kuwaiti descendant, we're putting you in a concentration camp. They just wanted more land and more oil because they're greedy bastards. But I again agree that Bush wanted to put the line in the sand because he was afraid they were going to go to Saudi Arabia.
Well, I mean, I heard that, they raped women and did...
But Ted, that's every army. That's every army in the history of the world. Or we're marching in, they're raping the women. No, we didn't rape as many women as the Russians did when we marched into Germany. So it's all degrees.
Yep.
At some point, and I've been working on this article, and this is why I've been so animated with you about it today, is I've been writing an article that there needs to be a post-war Earth. Because throughout history, since maybe around the year 1500, most of the wars we are growing. We have all this land, and we're growing. Everything is about new land and new boundaries. Would you say that's fair? Mm-hmm. We found a new civilization. We found a new island. China, right now, they're showing their presence in the South China Sea. They're creating islands out of nothing. And they're saying those are our islands.
But
go ahead.
Getting back to Saudi Arabia, all you would have to do is say for instance, that 15 of the 19 hijackers came from Iran. Do you think we would have gone into Iran?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
2 seconds. Yeah.
No, it is funny. I agree with you.
And
the only reason we didn't is because it was Saudi Arabia.
Right. But back to the thing.
But it is funny because even on a personal level, you let somebody you're friends with get away with more than somebody you don't like. And you know what I mean?
What's the old saying? All politics is local politics. So you're like, oh, my friend did that, but that's okay. Mm-hmm. And those other a-holes, we're not going to let them do anything. We all have nuclear bombs, but Kim doesn't get one. Mm-hmm. Well, why? Because he's a madman. Well, you could say we elected a madman. Yeah. I know you don't think that. Yeah, I'm just saying that some people say that. Okay, and I don't think Trump is a madman. I agree with Obama when he said, you elected a bullshitter. And I learned when I was a teenager, my first job, they said, you can never bullshit a bullshitter. And I'm like, oh, okay, what does that mean?
When did Obama say that?
He said that this week. He said that it wasn't that he thought that
Did Trump, he actually say that word?
He said that Trump was a bullshitter.
He used the word bullshitter.
Yes. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. And so we try not to swear too much, but that's the exact word that Obama used.
Okay, because I didn't hear that.
But anyhow, so back to China. So everything is all about land. Well, there's no more countries. There's no more free land The only free land now is on the moon or Mars. And there should be something where it says we are not, your borders are your borders from now on. And we're going to move into space. We're going to try and get establishment on the moon, on Mars, and sorry, Ted. And if China, well, let me turn this way. If China wants to be the first one in space, then they're going to have more land. And if we want to be the first ones in space, we're going to have more land. If France wants to be the first one in space, they're going to have more land than the other people. Because we're moving into space. Because there's no more land here unless you melt the Antarctic ice caps.
Well, we're working on that.
So the only way to expand for the next 1,000 years is into space. Can you make that happen?
We're thawing out some land.
Well, and that's the thing. You can make, just like China's making the islands on the South Central Sea, or the South Central Sea, holy cow. The South China Sea, right? You can have spaceships in space, and then, that's China. That's Chinese property. And then, they have little China up on the moon, and then little America up on the moon. And, you are going that way. But at this point, it doesn't make any sense to fight on Earth anymore. There's no more new land to discover. You see what I'm saying? When the British and the French went to war, that's our new land. No, that's our new land. China, they're still absorbing land today. They just absorbed, Taiwan and Nepal within the last generation. Ted's done talking politics, I can tell. He's
no.
But this whole thing started with Howard Stern, right? The whole thing that I wanted to get back to with Howard Stern is Howard Stern took a day off this week. And it actually made the news, okay? And they said it was the first time he had called in sick in 25 years. And it made me angry.
That's not true.
Well, but that's what he put out there. It was the first time I called off in 25 years. Right now, Howard Stern works 3 days a week, right? On Sirius. And he gets 8 weeks of vacation a year, okay? He used to work 4 days a week and had 6 weeks of vacation. How long has it been since Howard Stern worked 5 days a week and got 2 weeks of vacation like the common man?
No. I mean, I can remember when he worked 5 days a week, but he was still getting more than 2 weeks off.
Right. So Howard Stern has never had a job in New York. Now, when he was in Detroit, when he was getting fired, he could be like, I worked 6 months in a row and didn't get a vacation, or one of the other small markets. But it's disingenuous to say that this is the first time in 25 years he called off. Ted, how would you like to work at a job where you work 3 days a week, 8 weeks of vacation a year?
I would love it.
Yes. And so when Howard Stern says he has the flu, it's disingenuous. It just is. And it's why people, you can say it, and technically it's true, but you are not the working man.
Mm-hmm.
You are not the working man who's 25 years old, who's got his first. When he went to New York, it was not his first job, and he was not working a working man schedule. He'd be like, I work from 6 to 10, and then I work 24 hours a day. I work 24/7.
Yeah.
Now, he did have to do a lot of writing. He had to do appearances. I'm not saying he only worked 4 hours a day. What I'm saying is he's being disingenuous when he says that, I haven't called off in 25 years. Okay? People would kill for 8 weeks of vacation a year, 6 weeks of vacation a year, 4 weeks of vacation a year. Our company caps off, I shouldn't say our company, your company, my old company, they cap off vacation at 4 weeks, correct? You get 4 weeks and then they're like, then you get three personal days and it pushes you to 5 weeks, right? But you had to pay for that with 25 years, right? At the beginning, they did not start you at 4 weeks of vacation like Howard Stern had. Fred! So Howard Stern has freedom of speech, but he also twists the truth, and he's after 25 years, he's fairly predictable with the speech that he has. You see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
I don't think that Howard Stern is breaking down the Middle East, because he is of Jewish descent. Everything is based on the prism of Israel's right and the rest of them are wrong. Okay? Now, Israel hasn't been there since, they were there from when were they formed? 1946, 1945, 48. Whenever Israel started, they said, we're putting Israel back because we wiped it off the earth and now we're putting it back. Okay? Well, you could say the same thing about, again, go back to Ukraine. All the people in the Middle East are like, oh, well, Israel, we want to destroy Israel. Israel's a new country. Well, technically it's not. It used to be a country and then it got wiped out and then you see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Everybody's perspective is all, askew. Well, how about this? We start post-war Earth. We go from where it is now and move forward, right? And you just treat them like, at some point you have to learn to get along with your neighbors. I just read another article this week. South Africa is on the brink of civil war.
South Africa?
South Africa.
Really?
And I always thought that South Africa was one of the most stable countries in Africa. Well, they said Libya was after Gaddafi. Libya's plunged into chaos. South Africa is now on the brink of chaos. All these countries in Africa are having all kinds of problems. Do Americans care?
See, there's a perfect example of, okay, like Hillary Clinton and, most of the Democrats lambasted George W. Bush for going into Iraq.
Right.
And then when they're in charge, they take out Gaddafi.
Right.
But they don't go in there.
Right.
And what happens? You have chaos.
Chaos. Which goes back to, they don't care about Africa. They just don't. Now, before I told you that South Africa is on the brink of civil war, have you read anything about that?
No, I haven't.
I read
did
about
not
that.
know that.
I read that this week in a British newspaper. I didn't even read it in an American newspaper. They said that because, oh, jeez. I would give F in geography. My recall is horrible. There's a country, it used to be called Rhodesia, and it's right next door to South Africa. And the white, I think it was the British, ran them. And then about 10 years ago, they kicked all the white people out. And they said, all you white people, we're taking all your land. And then right after that, it was 1,000% interest, or 1,000% inflation. I think the guy who runs it, his name's Mugabe. He's 90 years old. And he said, we are taking the country back to the African roots because the Africans have always been here. Well,
it's not Uganda, is it?
No. I want to say, it used to be called Rhodesia, and now I can't remember what the name of it is. But the point is, oh, hey, Ted, this is why I keep you around. This is probably
on
going to be
that
wrong.
thing, it might still be called Rhodesia.
It might still be Rhodesia. We gotta. This is why I want stuff all the way around. Ted, you're awesome. Okay. Mozambique has 1,000% inflation. Their money is worth nothing. The people are dying in the streets, right? And they're like, we got rid of the white people. Well, yeah, but now your country used to be run well, and now it's a crap hole, right? And the people in South Africa said, we know that South Africa is one of the best countries in Africa, but we want to be like Mozambique and drive the white people out and run it. Well, why do you want to be like Mozambique? Now they're plagued by, anarchy and civil war. And their currency isn't worth anything, and your farmers don't grow anything. Well, that's who we want to be like. Okay, run your country into the ground.
See, there's my internet there.
Yeah, your internet is right there. So Mozambique, America does not care about Mozambique. They ran that country straight into the ground, and they weren't like, oh, the poor white minority, right? They're suffering. The white people who knew better were like, oh, screw this, we're going back to Britain. And the white people who didn't know better, now they're being oppressed and killed in Mozambique. And again, there is no global outcry for the poor whites in Mozambique.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not one of those people who are like, oh, the poor white people. What I'm saying is every country has a majority and every country has a minority. And it doesn't matter. What you know is dictated by the American media. Okay? And the American media makes places like Iraq and Iran important because of oil, and then you can, say no war for oil, and then all of a sudden you're all arguing. Okay? Nobody gives a rat's ass about Mozambique and what a cluster F it is now. Excuse my French and my burp. But I'm sorry, we started talking about Howard Stern and then we got circled back around. Howard Stern took as much money. All Howard Stern is a big greedy capitalist. Okay, now granted he's funny. Okay, but at the end of the day, he was about money. How can I make the most amount of money? How can I make the most amount of money? Now, he would say he was all about his show, but it goes back to what me and you talked about before we even turned on the microphone. Okay? He seemed like he was a miserable SOB until he got what he wanted. Yeah. Then he's like, oh, America's Got Talent. Everything's great in the world. I want to be known and beloved and an interviewer. Well, for 20 years, you were a miserable SOB and you were hilarious.
That's when I liked him, yeah.
Yeah, and that's when I liked him too.
Probably because I'm a miserable SOB.
But once he got what he wanted, he's like, oh, well, I got my vacation, I got my time off, I got the show that I wanted, everybody's telling me how great I am. Life's good. Well, yeah, after you trampled on everybody and made fun.
Now he's just what he used to make fun of.
Right. And one day, maybe me and you will be that.
Mm-hmm.
I
guess in America, that means you're a success.
Well,
when you get to that point, that means you've made it.
And that's the whole point of where we started from to where we're going. The American model of success is almost you're an a-hole until you get what you want.
Mm-hmm.
Well, welcome to America. Well, at that point, you're no better than the Russians because the Russians, they got their own... I'm trying to think of crony capitalism. Well, if you're just going to be an a-hole to everybody until you get what you want in America, that's your own form of crony capitalism. You are Russian. No, I'm not! I'm sorry, it's just America used to lead by example, and they don't lead by example anymore. And it drives me crazy. And this whole thing with Donald Trump, he's not the Antichrist, okay? I tend to agree with Obama. He's just a BSer.
Really the American dream shouldn't be making the most money. The American dream should be working at what you love.
Right.
And if you get a lot of money, that should be like a bonus.
Right. And that's exactly right.
But what it's become, if it ever was that, it's become... whoever makes the most money is,
right.
The biggest success.
But that's exactly right. And back in the old days, when people used to make a good way, and we're going to use Cleveland. I know it's different in different countries, right? But in Cleveland, how many Ford plants did we used to have? They just bulldozed the Ford plant, which is right down the road.
Well, it was at least... 4 or 5?
And what about the one at Walton Hills?
I think that's done.
The American dream was good family, good wages, the middle class dream, right? Now, the dream in 2017 is like you said, get as rich as you can, screw the middle class. Mm-hmm. If they worked harder, they would be rich. Mm-hmm. And a lot of poor people are like, well, why should we work when we have no avenue to be rich?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying whether it's right or wrong or race or anything, but there is a heroin epidemic, which we're going to circle back around to, a heroin epidemic in America, and Mike Rowe, who did the show Dirty Jobs, said part of the reason that there's a heroin epidemic, and I agree with him, part of the reason
I like him.
Part of the reason there's a heroin epidemic is because there's no value in work. If you work, you're the dummy.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't hear him say that, but that's the way I feel.
Well, and that's why that's why me and you were talking about it. If you work, you're the dummy.
Yeah.
Why didn't you come up with an idea that you're rich?
You're a chump.
Yeah. Or, well, why should I work? I'm just, there's no way. The people who work are the ones who are frowned upon.
Yeah.
The ones who are made fun of. In the 50s and 60s, you wanted to be the worker. You wanted to be the team player, right? Now the team players don't get ahead. You want to screw the guy next to you.
Yeah, and the thing is that the people at the top, their goal is to not need workers.
Right.
So in other words, they look at workers sort of with disdain.
Right.
Like, I got to pay this guy.
Right.
It's hurting my overhead.
Right. And that's why when you circle back around, you have freedom of speech in America, but everybody is like, I'm not the problem. That's the problem.
Yeah.
And then you could turn around and say, I'm not the problem. That guy's the problem. Nobody in America acknowledges that they are the problem.
And the thing is that talking about this, I think of what you've been saying since we started this. You've always said, if I could make what I'm making at my job doing this, I would do that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I'd be doing it every day.
I mean, you're not going to turn down, $10 million or whatever.
Right.
But it's not the thing that drives you.
Right.
What drives you is this is what you love to do, so you want to be able to make a living doing it.
Right. Which, again, goes back to the Howard Stern example. How many times did you hear him get on the radio and say, well, listen, I'm going to pay whoever gives me the most money, and this is going to be a contentious contract negotiation? How many times did you hear him talk about his contract? Maybe about 1,000?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm going to talk about my contract. Now, we make no money. You make no money. I make no money. I was excited to have I'm genuinely excited that we got fan mail.
Yeah, that's our currency.
That's our pay. And then we started to use bad words, which we try not to. But
now that we know the kids are listening.
Now that we know the kids are listening, we're going to start throwing out the F words. We're going straight to them. We're going to be like a punk band gearing our stuff towards 13-year-olds. But and that's why all this stuff, it drives me crazy when we talk about the Saudi Arabia thing for Trump. Trump is like, why wouldn't I go to Saudi Arabia? Like, he has the whole BSer thing is he has no self-awareness. Like, why wouldn't I go to Saudi Arabia first? It's like, why? Oh, I'm going to give you a history book, and I'm going to make you read it, why you shouldn't go to Saudi Arabia first. And then he'd be like, I'll have one of my aides read it.
Did he call Comey a nut job?
Yes.
Trump? Okay.
So, well, they're reporting that he did. I don't know if he did or not.
I think that's funny.
And don't get me wrong, Trump is not horrible, okay? It's just I can't go a day without him saying, like, he was saying Obama shouldn't have bowed to the Saudis, and then he turns around and goes right to Saudi Arabia. It's like, it doesn't matter if Trump bows or doesn't bow. He still went to Saudi Arabia when you should have been bombing Saudi Arabia. And then you could turn around and say, Fred, we shouldn't be bombing anybody. I'll listen to that. I will listen to we shouldn't be bombing anybody. I'm just saying, if we should bomb somebody, I would have put them in a different order. And then you say, well, Fred, you shouldn't say that. Well, too bad. I'm going to say, that's why we have beacon of speech, because I can say whatever I want. Now, I'm not being irresponsible.
No, has pretty much every one of our presidents gone to Saudi Arabia?
I think
Did Bill Clinton?
I think so. I think the article I read said the last 7 presidents have been to Saudi Arabia. Yeah. Ever since the 60s and 70s, Saudi Arabia has been flushing their money into America. And again, I can't say this enough times. They're yelling at Trump for having close ties with Putin. And let's say Trump lost and Clinton won. Fox News, The Blaze, all these right-wing places are going to be like, China flooded money into the Clintons. And it would be true. Well, since she lost, it doesn't matter. It's again, nobody's looking in the mirror. Well, maybe we shouldn't have taken all that money from China. They're screaming, why is Donald Trump taking all this money from Russia? Well, you took all that money from China. I see we're running out of time because we got long-winded on world events. I want to touch on a few more things real fast. Okay? Howard Stern, we talked about that. Another thing about Russia and Trump, I guess Trump has put out some ads. He wants to put out some 2020 re-election ads. And some places like CNN are saying, we're not going to take your money because you have false ads. You are fake media. Okay? Which goes back to, that's funny, that's the pot calling the kettle black. And I'm not saying CNN is always wrong. I can't say this enough times. CNN is right a lot. The problem is that they pick the news. They pick the agenda. They set the agenda. So when Donald Trump is calling you fake news, he's, in his less eloquent way, he's saying you pick and choose what the news is.
Did he say the other day he was talking about something, and I think he said, I can say that with surety?
Yes.
Is that what he said?
Yeah, I think so.
Is that a word?
No, it's not. But, again, at that point, you just don't like Trump. Not you. But you don't like Trump. If you're making fun of surety, it's like the same way when they made fun of Dan Quayle for saying potato. You know what I mean? Then you're just piling on. I'm
not making fun of him.
Oh, no.
I just wanted to make sure that that's what he said, and that I didn't think that was a word.
But I read a news article today. It was on the Daily Mail, and they were making fun of. I don't know if the Daily Mail was making fun of him or they were making fun of newspapers making fun of him. But outlets were making fun of the way Trump danced in Saudi Arabia. He was dancing like this. Okay? Well, that's fine. For all I care, Donald Trump could dance around in a thong and spin around like Curly. Okay? That is not real news. Yeah. Okay? What I want to know is what he's saying. Now, when he goes to Saudi Arabia and says, we're going to give you a crap load of money, that's news. The way he dances is not real news. Now you're just being a jerk and piling on. Okay?
I'm sorry. He's and I like him. You know I like Trump, but he's funny. He's just funny.
The thing is that if me and you are in a room, we invited Trump to be on our show.
Yeah, we did.
Let's pretend like.
Well, I did.
Yes, you did. Let's pretend like I wasn't libertarian and you were not a Trump supporter, but just a regular guy, right? We invite Trump on the show. I guarantee you he would make us laugh. He'd be very personable. Mm-hmm. He'd have an infectious personality. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? Yep. And Howard Stern talked about how he didn't think that Donald Trump would like being president because people would hate him. That Donald Trump wants to be liked. Yeah. He's a likable guy. Mm-hmm. He has charisma. Yep. Well, again, when they picked president, when they either picked I almost said Howard Stern. When they picked either Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, some people voted and said, well, who has more charisma? Well, that's easy. One of them's a lifetime politician who, is...
Well, the funny thing is that I think that happens every 4 years.
Well, but that's exactly right.
And I don't think people do it consciously.
No. But again, you're running your democracy based on who has a better personality. Mm-hmm. Well, how did Trump win? Well, Clinton is still bitching about how she lost. I keep reading stories about how she was moaning and she threw a fit after she lost. That's why you lost, not because of the content of what you were saying. It's because people didn't find you personable. Mm. But that's a dangerous way to run your democracy. And again,
she reminds me of. Did I tell you last week? On Mother's Day, I was watching that movie, Mommy Dearest. Yeah. She's kind of like her. Yeah. Joan Crawford.
Right.
I mean, that's the impression I get.
Right.
I've never seen her, beat somebody with a hammer.
Well, everybody talks about what the Founding Fathers meant when they wrote the Constitution. And when they wrote the Constitution, they did not mean for 40-year politicians to be in charge. And the wife of the politician and the son of the politician. You see what I'm saying? We're going to have families of politicians running this country. Well, we might as well be England. Okay? And that's where Hillary Clinton had that against her. She had lifetime politician against her. She had, less charisma than Donald Trump. Well, women might scream, "Oh no, Donald Trump!" No, Donald Trump always played to the camera. He played to his audience, and all the things that he got in trouble for, a lot of them were behind the scenes. Oh, look behind the curtain. Well, guess what? Hillary Clinton's. I just saw something this week where Hillary Clinton was practicing what would happen if Trump hugged her. Did you see this?
No.
I saw the video. And one of her strategists said, if Trump goes to hug her, it's a negative reflection on her because he's trying to be personable. So there's a picture, and I saw it on the internet, and this is not fake, this is real. Donald Trump goes to hug Hillary, and this isn't real. They have an actor for Donald Trump, and it's in one of her debate planning sessions. And again, she had the practice to debate. Even though she had, for 40 years she's been a politician, she was doing practice debates. So Donald Trump goes to hug her. She turns her hand and tries to shake his hand and turn away from the hug. Mm-hmm. Okay? That's high school stuff. That is, we're going to practice our debate, right? Because she was a lifetime politician, she was working on the optics of being hugged by Donald Trump. And again, there was no realness in it. Well, how can, if he hugs you, you just lost one poll point. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So at that point, what's real? Everything is an act.
Yeah, everything's scripted.
Everything is scripted. You're picking the words out better than I am. And like I said, today, we haven't done Beacon of Speech in 2 weeks, and I'm struggling with pulling words. Again, I don't know if it's a brain fart or, like we were saying, dementia sitting in for me. So I've had to talk around a few words. So
it was 2 weeks ago, the last one?
Maybe 3 weeks ago. It's been a long time.
Yeah, it has been.
But I'm coming back next week. We're going to sort this out. We'll get back next week. Back on schedule. Okay.
Now, have any of the fans, have they watched any of the ones with Joe?
No. They still think it's me and you. Don't tell Joe. Excuse me. Don't tell Joe. Okay. Chris Cornell died this week. Chris Cornell killed himself. Now, you're not the biggest Soundgarden fan. I know you're not. But a lot of his first songs were about depression and despair, yada, yada, yada. Right? So when people say that they were shocked that he died, I think they were shocked that he was in good health and he was touring and he died. Okay? But if you read his lyrics, I don't think it's surprising that he killed himself. Okay? I just don't. Now, his last song that he played that they didn't play very often was In My Time of Dying by Led Zeppelin. Okay? That was the last song he played before he killed himself. Ted Coley, if Beacon of Speech turned sideways one day and we had 1 million people say, we hate Ted Coley, and you went to kill yourself, would the song In My Time of Dying by Led Zeppelin be the song that you chose?
No.
Do you have a song? Do you want to think about that?
I'll have to think about it. What is the question?
If so many people harassed you. Now, Chris Cornell was almost universally beloved, okay? But if Beacon of Speech went sideways and 1 million people said, we hate Ted Coley, you became depressed and says, I am going to kill myself, what would be your last song as a musician that you would play before you offed yourself?
Oh, boy.
Now, when I worked at Iron Mountain, I used to think about that. I used to be like, you know what? If I killed myself, I'm going to, you know what they're going to play at my funeral? It's going to be Duality by Slipknot. Because it reminds me of Iron Mountain.
You know, it might be I Don't Care Anymore by Phil Collins.
Okay, I Don't Care Anymore by Phil Collins. That's going to be our song of the day. Okay? I don't care anymore. All right? Now that I don't work at Iron Mountain anymore, it wouldn't be the Duality song. I'd have to think of one. Okay? But Duality would have been the song while I was at Iron Mountain. And Chris Cornell, they said that his wife said he was not suicidal, and she blamed the prescription drug Ativan. Ativan made him kill himself. It was an antidepressant. they said that 1 in 10 Americans are on antidepressants. Okay, there's 300 million Americans, meaning 300 million Americans, meaning 30 million Americans are on antidepressants.
Yep, that's a lot.
And that's a lot, including Chris Cornell. So, did Ativan keep Chris Cornell alive for 10 extra years, or did it kill him? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, well, you're like, you never know. I don't know Chris Cornell. I don't know how depressed he really was.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? And so, Chris Cornell dying, you don't know if that Ativan saved his life. When he was 29, they put him on Ativan.
Yeah. Yeah, so you don't know if he wasn't on that, would he have killed himself 10 years ago?
Right. Or did they just put him on 6 months ago and he's like, this Ativan's like candy, and now he's dead?
Now, a question I have for you, they were part of the Seattle.
Right.
They were from Seattle,
Yes.
right? Now, so was Nirvana
Yes.
and Pearl Jam,
Yes.
and what was there, one or two other big
Yes.
bands?
Yes.
What was it, Alice in Chains?
Alice in Chains.
Okay, now, and that guy more or less killed himself,
Yes.
right?
Oh, he basically said, once they became famous, he's like, I'm going to see how slowly I can kill myself with this heroin. And did just literally boatloads of heroin.
I can't
until
think of, do you know his
Lane
name?
Staley.
Okay.
Until he was doing boatloads of heroin.
So basically, the only guy who's made it has been Eddie Vedder.
Right.
As far as they were all singers,
Right.
right? Kurt
Yep.
Cobain, well,
Yes.
guitarist too. But.
Yeah.
And was that what's that, 4 bands?
Yeah.
Was that the 4 major ones
they
that
were
came out of there?
Yes, they were the Mount Rushmore, okay? Now, some people would
that's
argue
bad,
that
man.
Alice in Chains was more metal. Some people would argue Pearl Jam was more rock. But the 4 of them are basically, when you think of grunge, you think of Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, Pearl Jam, and Nirvana. And they were, like you said, they were all out of Seattle or the area. If there was a huge Nirvana fan, they'd come running from behind the camera. Kurt was from Aberdeen, which was like a suburb. But you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So, like when LeBron first left Cleveland, he's like, I'm not from Cleveland, I'm from Akron. Oh, yeah, yes, LeBron, we know. You're from Akron. And then when he came back, he was like, I've been a Clevelander my whole life. Again, back to the Howard Stern analogy.
Before I forget, and I should know this, but I don't.
Mm-hmm.
How does Jane's Addiction play into this? Are they in that?
Jane's Addiction was from L.A., okay?
Okay.
And
I don't even know. Are they grunge? Because I really don't. Okay.
No. But I read an article in Alternative Press magazine, and I agree with them 1,000%, okay? They said that alternative was bubbling up all over the United States because of what rock music was becoming. Just like, how punk rock, they ushered out...
Yeah, they got sick of the hair metal.
Right.
Yeah.
So all these bands who are sick of hair metal's horrible. If Steve was here, I'd tell it to his face like I always did.
I know, that's...
A bunch of loser...
It's funny how that's, for whatever reason, that's who you think of.
Well, a bunch of fat loser posers made hair metal popular. Okay? So alternative swept hair metal out. Okay, now there were 1 or 2 good hair metal songs, but as a movement, it was horrible, just like disco was horrible. So alternative swept away the hair metal. Okay? Alternative Press magazine said if there was no Nirvana, Jane's Addiction would have been the band that everybody thought of as, hey, hair metal's gone and alternative is here to stay. The problem was that Jane's Addiction was out of L.A., and they were basically their own creature. Okay? It's the only band you can kind of lump them in with are the Red Hot Chili Peppers. They didn't sound anything alike, but they're both L.A. bands. Mm-hmm. Okay? And so there was no L.A. movement. The reason Nirvana is the head of the movement is they were the head of the Seattle sound. That brought real rock and roll back. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. If there was no Nirvana, Jane's Addiction would have been, the poster boy of alternative. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I used to love Jane's Addiction. They couldn't get out of their own way. Talk about heroin addicts. Both Red Hot Chili Peppers, and Jane's Addiction were bands of heroin addicts who couldn't get out of their own way.
But now, who's the singer for them?
For
Jane's Addiction.
Perry Farrell.
Okay, that's what I thought.
And I read an article about Perry Farrell this week, and all he talked about was how sexy Chris Cornell was, which was very uncomfortable. But he played on one of the first Lollapaloozas. They had gone way back. They were friends. A lot of these bands were all friends. You remember back in the 70s where they hated each other? Mm-hmm. A lot of these bands weren't rivals. They were friends. They were thinking, we're bringing the music to the masses. And a lot of them... Now, Pearl Jam is one band where they could have went after every red cent, okay? But they didn't. They're like, we like being Pearl Jam. And they turned down money. Now, you could say, oh, well, you know what? They could have been more popular.
They're stupid.
Yeah, they're stupid. They were good capitalists. They left money on the table. But Pearl Jam said they were getting burned out, and they said they took what they wanted to do and tried to make their own path. And they did not do things to make every red cent. They said if they were smart with their money, that they would make money and be comfortable.
Yeah.
But you don't hear people talking like Pearl Jam.
No. Nope.
So, but Chris Cornell bummed me out. And like I said, I liked Soundgarden. I liked, I didn't like Audioslave as much, to be honest with you. I liked Soundgarden, but I like Chris Cornell. He seemed like he carried himself well, and he seemed like a good guy. He didn't seem like, a normal junkie, rock star who was chasing after, one fix, the next fix. He is basically a victim of the prescription drug epidemic that's engulfing America. Because there's 30 million people on antidepressants, and you don't hear anything except for about the heroin epidemic anymore. And there's only a hop, skip, and a jump from, antidepressants to, heroin-based opiates. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, it's between antidepressants and painkillers. That's
right. Well, but I'm saying that one is numbing your mind and one's numbing your body.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? But you got a whole country full, and when I say a whole country full, you're talking about 30 million people who are not addicted, but are on antidepressants, including me, because of my panic attacks. I'm not spilling any secrets. When I had my panic attacks, they said, you should take Ativan, and I read some of the bad things about Ativan, and I said, I'm just going to take some generic thing, I don't even know what it's called, but I was afraid of the Ativan because I read about it. So I take a lower level than Ativan, but I had a prescription of Ativan. They said, if you cannot calm down, you have to take that Ativan. Okay, I had it in my cupboard. I know exactly what they're talking about. Like, when you cannot shut down, you have to take the Ativan.
Did you ever do it? Did you ever take it?
The Ativan? No.
Yeah.
No. Because I was afraid to.
Yeah.
Because I had read.
But you had it. They didn't
it.
give you a lot. They just
gave me a prescription for 5.
Yeah.
And they said people become addicted, and I didn't want to start down that road, so I'm on the G level antidepressant. I'll remember the name of it because it's
not Zoloft, is it?
It might be, but it's a generic. It's not called Zoloft. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So whatever the generic is of G level antidepressants is what I'm on. But I had that Ativan, and that's why I'm like, oof.
So what, was he taking it like regularly, or?
I think he was taking it like my doctor told me take it. They probably had him on a low level one, and they said, if you can't calm down, take the Ativan. So he took the Ativan, and he's like, woo, let's get the news, But again, you don't know if he didn't have the Ativan, would he have done it 10 years ago?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Because now you're talking about an at-risk thing. But again, it goes back to the heroin epidemic. The doctors put everybody on painkillers, and then they take them off, and they still want the opiates.
Well, it's kind of funny because I've read that a lot of times what's dangerous for people who are depressed is when they're starting to come out of it.
Right.
Because when they're depressed, they don't have enough energy to even, I'm not going to kill myself. I don't even feel like doing that.
Right.
But then when they start coming out of it and having a little hope, that's like a dangerous time.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm looking at our time. Our time is up. Ted, I barely even touched our outline because all we talked about was world events.
Yeah.
So I'm very sorry about that.
That was a minefield.
Yeah. Well, we probably stepped in it, and we're probably going to get we're not going to get any more fan mail because we talked about world events.
The end of the fan mail.
Yeah, no more fan mail.
The end of the internet.
We only had one day of fan mail.